Where is Daniel? Daniel!
You know I only have 7 days left to live, but please would you marry me?
Amaka Okeke had mastered the art of looking perfectly fine while quietly falling apart. At 32 years old, she had become one of the most respected doctors in the hospital. Patients trusted her instantly. Nurses admired her discipline. Even senior consultants lowered their voices whenever she entered emergency meetings. She was brilliant, beautiful, successful, and painfully exhausted. Every morning began with hospital alarms. Every night ended with silence. Somewhere between emergency surgeries, expensive coffee, and pretending work was enough to replace companionship, Amaka stopped noticing how lonely she had become. Her father noticed instead. "Amaka," Chief Okeke said one evening while adjusting his glasses dramatically, "you cannot marry your hospital." Amaka barely looked up from her laptop. "At least the hospital calls me back." Chief Okeke stared at her for 3 full seconds. That was disrespectful. It was accurate. The old man sighed deeply, like a disappointed village elder trapped inside a wealthy businessman's body. "You are 32. And your mates are posting matching pajamas online." Amaka closed the laptop slowly. "Daddy, if you use social media as a measurement for success again, I will prescribe therapy for you personally." Chief Okeke pointed at her immediately. "See, this is why men fear intelligent women." Amaka laughed despite herself. That was the thing about her father. No matter how exhausted life became, he always found a way to pull small smiles out of her. Unfortunately, the hospital always pulled her back. 2 days later, during one unusually quiet afternoon shift, Amaka received a new patient file. Male, 36, rare cardiac condition, transferred from another specialist hospital. Possible 7-day survival estimate. Amaka sighed softly before entering the room. Normally, terminal patients came with one atmosphere: fear. But the man sitting inside room 407 looked almost relaxed. Daniel Adeyemi leaned comfortably against the hospital bed, wearing expensive joggers and a hoodie, like somebody waiting for a delayed flight instead of death. The moment Amaka entered, he smiled. Not weakly, not sadly, properly smiled. "Ah," he said calmly, "so this is the doctor everybody has been shouting about." Amaka blinked once. Most patients cried. This one looked ready to start a podcast. She checked his file carefully. "Daniel Adeyemi." "That's me." "You seem unusually calm." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "Well, if panic could cure people, Nigerians would never die." Amaka almost smiled. Almost. She maintained professionalism instead. "How are you feeling today?" Daniel looked around the room. "Emotionally or medically?" That one nearly escaped her mouth completely. Nearly. Medically. Still alive. Amaka exhaled slowly. This man was going to be stressful. Over the next few days, Daniel became the most talked about patient in the hospital. Not because he was difficult, because he behaved like somebody determined to enjoy life aggressively before leaving it. He flirted harmlessly with nurses, complimented security guards, gave relationship advice to a pharmacist going through heartbreak. One afternoon, Amaka walked into his room and froze. Daniel was wearing complete traditional groom attire. Inside the hospital. What exactly is happening here? She asked carefully. Daniel adjusted the cap proudly. I'm preparing. For what? My future wedding pictures. Amaka stared at him. You are in cardiac observation. Yes. But death should not meet me looking unprepared. Amaka covered her face briefly. For the first time in weeks, she laughed properly. Daniel pointed immediately. There. That sound. You should use it more often. Amaka stopped laughing instantly. Something about the way he said it felt too personal, too observant, and for some strange reason, it unsettled her. That evening, Daniel's mother arrived. Mrs. Adeyemi entered room 407, carrying enough food to feed an entire church convention. My son, she cried dramatically, you are becoming thinner. Mommy, Daniel replied calmly, this is hospital lighting. Mrs. Adeyemi noticed Amaka immediately. Her eyes narrowed suspiciously, then widened knowingly, then narrowed again. African mothers were terrifying detectives. You are the doctor? Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Adeyemi smiled warmly. Beautiful girl. Amaka nodded politely. Then the older woman whispered loudly to Daniel, if you don't marry this one before dying, I will personally revive you myself. Mommy! What? Even Amaka burst into laughter again. And slowly, without realizing it, room 407 became the only place inside the hospital where Amaka felt human again. Days passed strangely fast. Daniel created something he called the last week list. A handwritten list of things he wanted before dying. Amaka found it accidentally one afternoon. The list included eat expensive food without checking the price, dance during rainfall, wear matching outfits with somebody, take wedding pictures, watch sunrise from a rooftop, fall in love at least once. Amaka stared at the final line quietly. Then Daniel entered behind her. You weren't supposed to see that yet. She looked at him carefully. You really think you only have 7 days? Daniel smiled faintly. I think life is unpredictable. That is not an answer. No, he admitted softly. It's fear wearing confidence. For the first time, the room became quiet. Not awkward quiet, honest quiet. And somehow, that silence brought them closer than conversation ever had. The changes started gradually after that. Amaka stayed longer inside room 407 than necessary. Daniel began waiting specifically for her footsteps. They started eating together, talking longer, laughing easier. One rainy evening, electricity flickered briefly inside the hospital. Daniel looked toward the window. "Come with me somewhere." Amaka frowned. "You are literally attached to hospital monitoring equipment." Details. Daniel. Dr. Amaka. That is not how medicine works. But it is how memories work. 30 minutes later, Amaka found herself standing on the hospital rooftop beside a dying man while rain fell gently across Lagos city lights. She should have stopped this. Instead, she laughed while Daniel stretched both arms into the rain dramatically, like somebody auditioning for emotional suffering. "This is illegal romance," Amaka muttered. Daniel turned toward her. "No. This," he smiled softly, "is living." Something inside her chest shifted painfully. Not because she was afraid of losing him. Because she was beginning to realize she already cared too much. Days later, Chief Okeke visited the hospital unexpectedly. The moment he saw Daniel and Amaka laughing together, the man removed his glasses slowly. So this was the problem. Later that evening, he cornered his daughter privately. "You like him?" Amaka nearly choked on water. "Daddy?" "I am old, not blind." "He's my patient." And this is inappropriate." Chief Okeke folded his arms. "Do you know what is truly inappropriate?" Amaka sighed already. A 32-year-old woman using work to hide from happiness. That one hit too hard. Meanwhile, Daniel's condition slowly worsened. The jokes became weaker sometimes. The silences longer. One night, Amaka entered his room and found him awake, staring quietly at the ceiling. "You couldn't sleep?" Daniel smiled weakly. "I was negotiating with death." Amaka sat beside him immediately. "Daniel, what if this is really it?" Her chest tightened instantly. For the first time since meeting him, the fear finally sounded real. And suddenly, all the humor, flirting, and jokes felt painfully fragile. Amaka reached for his hand without thinking. Daniel looked down at their fingers quietly, then back at her. "You finally touched me fast," he whispered softly. That almost destroyed her emotionally. The next morning, Daniel disappeared. The entire hospital panicked. Nurses searched everywhere. Security guards checked cameras. Amaka nearly lost her mind. Until finally, Captain Security called her. "Doctor, you need to come downstairs." Amaka rushed outside and froze completely. Daniel stood beside a decorated car wearing a cream-colored suit. Beside him stood a photographer and Mrs. Adeyemi, smiling proudly. "What is this?" Amaka asked breathlessly. looked nervous for the first time since she met him. I still have one thing left on my list. Amaka's heartbeat became violent. Daniel, I know the timing is insane. I know this may not even last. I know life is uncertain. He stepped closer carefully. But if I leave this world without seeing this, I will regret it forever. Then slowly, Daniel brought out a ring. Even Lagos traffic noise suddenly felt distant. Amaka Okeke. His voice shook slightly. Will you marry me? Silence. Pure silence. Mrs. Adeyemi was already crying loudly in advance. The photographer looked emotionally invested. One nurse nearly fainted from excitement. Amaka stared at him helplessly. Then suddenly, she started laughing through tears. Not because it was funny, because her heart could no longer hold everything she was feeling at once. You are completely insane, she whispered. Daniel smiled nervously. That is not technically a no. Amaka looked at him for a long moment, then finally nodded. And for the first time in many years, she stopped being afraid of happiness. Months later, something unbelievable happened. Daniel responded positively to treatment. The 7 days slowly became 3 weeks, 2 months, then more. Recovery remained difficult, uncertain, but possible. And somehow, hope returned where fear once lived.